going to start my presentation, and it's all about Central Queensland gemstones. So, if you're interested, come and have a listen. Even if you're not interested, maybe you should still have a listen. You might learn something. Yeah, it's all good. My approach to this is pretty informal, because most Aussies are pretty informal. You don't get hung up too much on airs and graces. Anyway, I've got a bit of a problem with this mic. That seems to be okay. Our business is Capricorn Gems, and Capricorn Gems is a gemstone business that was created slightly different than the norm, because we focus only on the 4 gemstones from Central Queensland. So we don't really get involved in anything else other than 4 gems. And you'll see what they are as we do the presentation. But they basically are from our particular part of the state, and we're just fortunate to have those gemstones present in our particular area. I will name them. I will name them. This might seem too vague. Do I need to get close to something? Maybe over here. So the 4 gemstones are sapphire, boulder opal, chrysoprase, and zircon. Where are we? Central Queensland. No, it's Australia. Queensland is one of the states, one of the 7 states in Australia. Land mass is about the same size as the US, but we only have 7 states. And we only have 27 million people. So there's a lot of space out there that's not habitable. Most of the people live around the coastal strip, from Melbourne to Brisbane, basically, and the rest of the country. A few of them, but the rest of the country is not that populated. So we're up in Central Queensland. I live next to Rockhampton there. That's Central Queensland place. Rockhampton, Central Queensland. And I'll come in a little closer now on the map. So near Rockhampton. And what I've done is overline the actual areas where the gemstones are found. So we have the sapphires. The sapphires are actually found near a town called Emerald, would you believe? One of those crazy things, isn't it? Chrysoprase found just under Mackay there, just inland a little bit. The actual zircon and sapphires found in the same mining area. And then boulder opal is found out in the western Queensland, which is in the far west of the state. It takes about 15 hours to drive from the coast out to a place called Longreach, so it gives you some idea of the dimension of the drive. It's a good day and a half drive, quite a ways. That's a bit of an image of the remoteness of the country. Mileage is straight roads, not much to see. Well, depends. Lots of things to see if you haven't seen it before. Well, I want to talk about sapphires first, and I want to firstly just hand around a couple of pieces of rough sapphire. So these are. I'm going to talk about these pieces in a little bit. But what we have here is a sapphire crystal and a piece of sapphire rough. Central Queensland sapphires are renowned for being multicoloured sapphires. We have 2 colours in one stone. And generally the colour palette, blue, blue-green, blue-yellow, green, back up into a pure yellow. So that's the trend of the colour systems that we keep, or that we have. Here's a few examples there. Mining, the mining operations, the mining The mining operations are both underground and open cut. So this is some pictures of the countryside. This is an example of a cut being undertaken just to do an experiment to see whether there's any material there, and then the bottom image there is actually at the top of a shaft. The shafts go down about 40 or 50 feet in some cases, and that we're looking for the seam. It's an alluvial product, it's an alluvial type, secondary deposit, so we're looking for the actual sapphire in an alluvial gravel. And those alluvial gravels sort of can be anywhere from inches thick to a couple of feet thick. So we're looking for that product, we're mining that product, and then we're putting it through a wash plant style operation. This is a few images here. Wash plants, thanks very much. A couple of hand mining underground, and then big excavator mining. So the varying types of mining taking place. Typical wash plant situation, material comes down, big material is cast off on one side, small material runs down through the water sluice, and what we call a pulsator jumps up and down, and the sapphires congregate at the bottom of that pulsator. And at the end of the day, you turn the whole thing off, and then you go and scrape all the gravel off and look for the sapphire material. And as you saw that, the ones I handed around, it's a sort of blackish, darkish type material. So I handed to you a crystal, a sapphire crystal, which is fairly rare to find because mostly they break over time. You saw also in that crystal the multicolour, the strands, the blue and the yellow. That's the nature of the product in many cases. And if you know anything about gemology, the colouring in sapphire is created by trace elements, very, very minute trace elements. Pure sapphire is clear. So it's the colour that comes in from trace elements, like 0.05% of the actual component of the molecule. So we mine underground, we have other mining friends that mine, we have two mines. We have other friends that do larger scale excavator type mining. Any questions today? I'll continue. Where do we get the water from? That's a good question. And that's a real good question, because water is a big concern for us. And in fact, a couple of years ago, we actually ran out of water because there wasn't sufficient water. We just don't get rain all the time. So when we do see rains, which has been this season, we've had some good rains, dams, they all dig the dams and they just store water. But even then, that's not necessarily enough. So generally most wash plants have a water recovery system. So the water that's washed through is sent out to a sediment sort of pond, or in some cases, big tanks, sediment tanks. The solids sink to the bottom, take away the solids, repump the water back up into the system. So it's a circular system generally for water that keeps things going. Well, here's my business partner, Rod. Rod has been in the business for 40 odd years. What he's doing here is actually going through the material that comes out of the pulsator, and then he's actually looking at the quality of the rock material. We then put it on a light box here, and then that becomes a sorting table, so we can actually see the quality of the gem. And then of course it's segregated into particular quality areas. Of course, the same old story applies. You know, if you get the bulk of the material isn't commercial, the old triangle effect, you know, at the top of the triangle, that's what you're looking for. The rest of it's pretty much just not marketable. We can get good size material, and again, that's part of the whole production process, is working out what can be cut and what's just dispensed with. There's a number of different markets also. Some of the lower quality is sent off to a different market. We keep probably the best quality that you can get, and then we process it, cut it, bring it out to the market. That's what I do. So here we go, some images of the actual cutting. That's right there. And then this is a cutting workshop in Thailand. And Rod's been in this industry a long time. He's spent a lot of time in Thailand as well. So he's got a lot of contacts, a lot of friends and people up there that he's known for many, many years. So we get the material cut there. But what we do first before we cut or send it up to Thailand, or he takes it up, is pre-form the gem. So what we mean by pre-form is shaping up the gem first. So we can determine the orientation of the stone. Now for Australian sapphires, that's a really important thing to do, because if you don't get the orientation of the stone correct, you just don't get the beauty of the stone coming out. So orientation is really important to us. Pre-forming, and the other reason we pre-form gem is pretty much for security purposes actually, because if we send 20, say for example, 20 pre-formed stones up to the cutters, we know we're going to get 20 back. Whereas many people in the past have sent rough material to cutters in faraway lands and maybe don't get back what they expect for all sorts of reasons. I think that's a polite way of looking at it. If you haven't seen cutting, if you haven't seen freehand cutting of gemstones, it's marvellous. So, does anyone know a little bit about faceting at all? Faceting gems? Okay. If you know a little bit about faceting, it's a great exercise to go and have a look at just how they facet. So there's no arms, jigs, angle, money, protractors and multiple laps and all that sort of stuff. Have a look at the lap there. It's both a cutting and a polishing lap. Right? So they don't change laps, and it's all a hand and eye cutting process. And they're just so good and so quick and relatively inexpensive compared to the Western world. So that's why we send our gems there. We're very conscious of quality, so we're always monitoring quality, make sure that what we get back is what we can market to what our designer maker friends are telling us they want. Here's a few pieces. So we cut just about every shape and size you can imagine, right from the sort of flat with a faceted edge, natural edge, and then all the geometricals, traditional shapes, of course. Ovals. Ovals are always the biggest seller. I mean, it's just how it is. People still like to buy an oval gemstone. Most rings are still ovals. But on occasion you'll get the other more creative styles. Star sapphires, yes we do. We don't sell a lot of stars. It's sort of a trend ring, I think, too. Men's ring, we tend to go with the stars. We have a silver and a bronze star. So that's some examples. So that's the sapphire story. So let's move on to boulder opal. Yeah, it's a pretty impressive wall with boulder opal. And it says, I think, something to the effect of to all current and future opal miners, that wall is out in the middle of a little country town and just is there. No one goes and attacks it, digs it out, or anything like that. It's just there. It's been there for many years. So you can see the opal in it. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? Yeah. So that's a great example of boulder opal. That's the map there of where opal was found. It's a vast area. It's a vast area, Western Queensland. It's all opal-bearing countryside. So there are mines positioned all around that area. Again, it's very remote. There's myself and a friend of mine out there, just playing around. We went out. We go out every couple of years, see what's going on. And here's some images of the mining. So, how do you find opal? Well, it's always a tough one, that one. So the opal, it's a bit like the gold mines, you know, gold's where it is, opal's where it is. So, but you've got to try and find it. And one of the ways they do identify is this middle top photograph here. That is an example of exposed opal on the top of the ground. So you take a walk through the bush, you go out wherever you want, and you're looking for these sorts of outcrops. Well, they're not really outcrops. What they are is old boulders that have broken open and reveal some colour. So what you're looking for is a presence of colour, a presence of where the opal might be. And that's no guarantee where it will be. That's where it might be. So what they do then is they then take a small excavator, do a few test holes, go down 20, 30 feet, just see whether or not there's any other boulders in that particular location. If there are, which shows promise, of course they'll bring the big excavators in. That machinery up there, having a chat to some of these fellas. And they'll start to sink some big holes and hopefully get the boulders. Bottom photo there was a lovely piece of boulder. So after they finish mining, they're obliged to reclaim the land. So they get the dozer out and then just level it all off, fill the holes in. Plant grass seeds, plant trees. 10 years time, you can hardly tell that anything's happening. It actually doesn't take that long to regenerate, actually. So that's part of the whole deal. Who owns the land? Yeah, good question. Who owns the land? In many cases, it's actually crown, what we call crown land. Yeah, back to the English days, crown land. But it's actually state. It's the state that owns a lot of the land out in that part of the country. Most of this land is used for cattle grazing, what we call cattle grazing, just like ranch land up in this part of the world. But those people generally don't own the land as well. So in lots of cases they lease the land and they pay a long-term lease from the government. In some cases they do own the land, yes, freehold, but in many cases they don't, they lease the land. So as a miner, then the miner can go in and do exploration and have an exploration permit to explore. Then if they decide to mine, they have to make application for a mining permit. And then they have to get the agreement from the landholder to actually come in on the land. And then any material requirements of value they should pay a royalty on. It doesn't always happen, but that's how it's organised. So it's not private land. So you've got to remember this is very remote country and it's very hot in summer. Like now, you know, January is hot. I've just come back from Australia and, you know, it was 30s, mid-30s, late 30s, sea is like 100, 105, 110. But high humidity too, like the humidity can be very high. So it actually is very hard on machinery. You know, running big machines in hot weather, it's not good. You know, blow hoses, blow radiators. It's just not work. So most miners actually shut down. They actually close down their business over that period of time. They won't start up until late April, and then they run through till probably late November. So during that time that they shut down, they generally have a house back near the coast somewhere. and they'll take the material out and they'll process the material. You know? So basically out in the West they only have campsites, you know, it's like an old shed with a bit of a few beds and a kitchen type thing and water tank. Generally they've got a phone service or like a satellite service and stuff like that, but it's pretty rudimentary mostly. So then they're out there for that 4, 5, 6 months and then back into the coast. That's in the old open mining, whereas the sapphire mining, they tend to live on the field because it's closer to the coast. It's not as hot as out on this part of the country. So here's my business partner, Rob, processing some opal, cutting it down into small blocks, grinding it on the wheel, and then processing, and of course the final result. So that's a process of bringing the rough material into a marketable, saleable product. And here's a few pieces of pretty made. If I can use it, see. Just a little bit about zircon, as I said before. Yeah, it's a totally underrated gem. It's a bit sad in some ways, but we struggle to sell zircon, not because of the gem itself, merely because of market acceptance. There's just not a lot of knowledge out there in the market about what zircon is and the beauty of the stone. And you can see here the various colour ranges that we get clear through the yellowish, through this pinkish, so-called morganite-ish tone. And zircon is one of the prettiest gemstones, double refractivity, high scintillation, beautiful gem to set. Its hardness is a little bit of a weakness, but if you set it correct and you wear it correctly, it's not a problem. Hardness is around 687. Yeah. So it's not a ring, it's not a piece that you can ring, it's not a ring piece that you wear every day. It's just too much risk. With the use, in my opinion. Some people do, but it's quite likely you'll be recutting this stone after 5, 7, 8, 10 years or something, because it is subject to some abrasion compared to sapphire, for example. So, we sell this material. It's sort of sold as a secondary product, if I can use that term, out of our business, out of the sapphire business. We sell a couple of hundred stones a year compared to what thousands of sapphires. And it's just the way it is. But again, I think also it's a market confusion. People don't know. People get confused about cubic zirconia, zircon. And it's just how it is. So, in time, I think people will become more knowledgeable about it, but until that happens, we're sort of on the periphery with that particular gem, unfortunately. Okay, the question was why is there confusion? What happened with the name? Okay, so the best way to explain this is zircon is its own gemstone, its own mineral. It's a standalone gem. It's one of the many thousands of gems. Cubic zirconia was a product made in a laboratory, and it was whoever named it cubic zirconia should be knocked on the head, or should be. Why did they name it that name? I don't know. But they named it cubic zirconia merely as a name. And it was to compete with diamonds, basically, back in the day. That was the intention of cubic zirconia. But of course, now the legacy of that is people generally in the market know what cubic zirconia is, but they don't know what zircon is. And then if you go and tell them about zircon, oh, is that cubic zirconia? There we know. Well, no, it's not. It's a totally different gem. So this gem is its own mineral, its own product, its own stone, and it's the oldest gemstone on Earth. It's been dated back to 4 billion years. So it's got a lot of features, this particular gem, that should make it more appealing. And you can get practically every colour. So it's a bit, as I say, it's disappointing that it hasn't had market penetration. Why? Well, where you can see them right now today, we've got a show over in the Masonic Temple. Right? Yeah, I've got some over there. And the price points are not relatively not expensive compared to others. Drop over and have a look. So, they range from, it depends on the size of the gem, starting around about $60 a carat up to like, the top price for a really good 3-4 carat zircon is about $225 a carat. It's about like a beautiful pink stone is like $600, and it's a nice gem. For a sapphire, you pay $4 grand. You know, that's the difference. But it depends on what you want to do. But you know, a small little 4mm bead or something like $60 a carat. I don't know what, half a carat or something like that. 1.7. Anyway, chop over. Just a quick aside in terms of gem shows. So we're involved with the Ethical Gem Fair. I don't know if you've heard of that. The Ethical Gem Fair. That's come and gone. We've had that last Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And now we, just Capricorn Gems, have joined with this new show called Out of the Jewellery Box Experience, OJB Experience. I'm even confused today. It's worth a look. There's about 7 or 8 vendors, so it's a combination of gemstone and designs. But you're welcome to try it. I got some over there. Yeah, it's all there. It's about 3 minutes walk away. Yeah. So just go up that street and hang out right, and you'll see the Masonic Temple. It's a fabulous venue, really. Just come and have a look at the venue. Inside it's really, really nice. So it's pretty relaxed shows with, when you come over, you'll see. Yeah. We're there today and tomorrow. We were there yesterday and there today. Yeah, that's right. Australian Oval, broadly, just a quick touch about that. Boulder Oval is only one type, Australian Oval. Then you've got a number of other types. Of course, you've got Lightning Ridge Oval, which is its own brand, and really its own location. Black Oval and variations of Black Oval. Lightning Ridge is in northern New South Wales, which is the state below Cairns. So totally it's a different location and a different type of opal. Then there are other opals, the white crystal. You've probably seen the white crystal opal, and that's from a place called Kuda, which is in South Australia. So opal is found in a couple of different states. Boulder Opal is probably the largest area where opal is found. Lightning Ridge is well known, of course, and probably the most expensive opal, particularly when you get high quality. And you just very, very rare. The black opal, I mean, you can make thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Serious. It's a bit like Argyle diamonds. You know about Argyle diamonds? Argyle diamonds, pink diamonds. I think I was talking to a guy the other day, and like a 0.6 carat diamond was something like $200,000. And it's just totally off the plan. If you bought Argyle diamonds like 20 years ago, you'd be, you could buy those for 10,000 or something big on it, 250 or something. It's just crazy. They've shut the mine down, so they're not producing anymore. That's one of the other reasons, is they're just not on the market. They're beautiful. pink diamonds. Have a look them up, Argyle diamonds. And lastly, we have a little bit of chrysoprase. And then you can see the different countryside, see? See how there's more trees, a bit green. This is near the coast, so this isn't as far inland. Still quite remote, but it's high rainfall there. And then we get the chrysoprase in these seams, and then we process that into beads. Don't do a lot of beads these days, but mainly cabs. But we also have facets on chrysoprase, and it's worth a look at. It's just the mine, some rough stuff. So we facet the translucent material, and it comes out quite nicely. Again, it's a price point thing, and here it is, lower price point, similar to zircon. This is a species. When you get, chrysoprase comes from like dollars a pound to dollars a carat. It's just such a wide range of quality. Oh, really? Is that right? Oh, really? There you go. Fair going quality chrysoprase, you're generally talking around about $30 odd a carat, like that big piece. Those pieces will be around 35, 40, and even higher per carat. It's all the apple green. It's everyone wants the clean apple green. But this is what you can do with it. It makes some beautiful pieces. This piece the middle piece was made for a lady up in New York. And the others, various other places, UK, Australia, all the chrysoprase. So, just to finalise, if you're ever coming to Australia, go to that website, Give the Tropics. It's actually Give the Tropic. I don't know, I've got an S on there, it shouldn't be there. No, I don't have a find here. But if you go to Give the Tropic, it's a really interesting website because it talks about, it's actually a sort of tourism oriented rather than just rocks and minerals. So you can actually go onto this website and it'll take you as a tour through central Queensland geologically, not just gemstones, but the whole geological program through central Queensland. And it's just an interesting site to see. Obviously it includes all what I've been talking about, but it also has got other, like in winter there's a large dinosaur find there, very important dinosaur find. It talks a lot about that. And now the second link that I've got there might be useful for you guys, because this is a link that comes out of the UK, and it's in fact out of Scotland. And this group in Scotland have done a lot of work on ethical making, not just ethical sourcing of gems or metals, but the process of ethical making in your workshop, what chemicals to use, how to dispose of chemicals properly. So a whole range of things there. I would recommend you go to that site and have a little look at that. You might find some interesting topics there. Yeah. Well, thanks very much for listening today, and Sean. The address of the show is this one. I think it's Tuesday, 160 South Stop. 160. Yeah, thanks. My memory. It surprised me.